Okay, so this is kind of like starting off with a continuation of our last conversation about the Turnip Princess by Franz Xavier von Schonwerth. So we talked about it, we delved into it, and I think we just had some further thoughts on that, especially you after talking with your parents. And so we're going to talk about that first, and then we'll talk about another story that may or may not be related from the Grimm's brothers called the Turnip, just the Turnip. Uh, so, Ian, do you want me to read the kind of thoughts that you had typed out
I
in the
think
text message to me? Or
I think I remember them, but if
okay,
if I miss anything that you think is important, let
okay,
me know.
yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Um, but I think the first one that really struck me, like the most important one for me, was I know in our last recording I was sort of stuck on the meaning of the turnip. Like what exactly is it meant to symbolize, and what is it doing in the story? Um, and it occurred to me. So my parents, I was telling my folks that I'd been on this podcast. And I was like, "Oh, what did you talk about?" And I was like, "Oh, this fairy tale." And they were like, "Tell us about it." So I was like, "Okay,
That's
I'll
great.
I'll do it again." Um, and then telling them about it, I realized that the with the turnip you have this symbol of something round, and kind of whole, which from a Jungian perspective at least, the symbol of the self, sort of the completeness, or the comparable to like a mandala in Buddhism. It's sort of
Right.
a all encompassing kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's a turnip, I think, brings up, it's buried in the ground, it's in the darkness, it's sort of underground. And so our prince, who's trying to find the turnip to put the nail in, to sort of join the nail with the turnip, um, it's sort of his lost sense of wholeness, his lost sense of self. Um, and he struggles to find it. He struggles to find it, and then once he breaks the branch off of the bush, which hopefully people have listened to the first version, because I'm not going to go into the whole fairy tale again. But he breaks the thorn branch off the bush, and and then he finds a turnip like right in front of him. So he's gotten a hold of his wound or his trauma or whatever, the thorny bushes, and he joins that with this uncovered complete self. So this fractured part of himself joins in with the whole of himself, and and then I think he immediately passes out, if I remember correctly, as he seems to do. Um, um, and when he wakes up, the turnip has become a bowl, so it's opened. It's no longer round, right? It's a half, and the inside is hollow. So there's a sense of the innards revealed of the self, the turnip self that has grown in the darkness. And in that, this was a part that really was a light bulb for me. I was like, in that bowl is the impression of the beautiful maiden princess, anima figure, the lost part of the prince. And all of a sudden, he, like, on a psychological level, it's communicating the he he understands the lack in his soul. He under
Yeah.
like he has a place for the thing that he's longing for. The longing that would have driven him out of the castle, the sense of being lost,
Yeah.
wandering in the forest, ending up in the cave with this hideous woman that he rejects, who loves him.
Yeah.
He finds in himself the place from which this alienated part, the feminine, the body, the emotions, whatever. I mean, it's a fairy tale, so you could put whatever label you want on it.
Yeah.
But this part of himself that loves him and is coming towards him, and that he keeps rejecting, he finds it within the whole of the turnip. And so that's sort of the aha moment of for the prince, of like, oh, I have a place in me where this thing that I thought was lost belongs.
Yeah.
It's like a nest or like a homecoming for this thing. And he immediately runs off and is able to find the cave, and the cave is abandoned. But then the old woman and the bear show up right there when he needs them. And it just kind of brings the whole thing together, which I think is why she's even called the Turnip Princess, right? That's the whole name of the story. So yeah, I was really excited to see that. I guess to have that kind of reveal itself to me, because I certainly, when we talked about it last time, I certainly was lost on what the turnip was, and then once the pieces kind of fell into place, it became like the center point of the whole story. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that's really great. That's really terrific.
yeah, thanks, thanks.
Yeah, I like yeah, when you had first sent me that text about yeah, the round s- thing being a symbol of the soul. I mean, I thought of how I had recently looked up the etymology of holy because I had
Hmm.
realized it sounds like whole. And indeed, they are etymologically related. So holy things have something to do with wholeness, which is just, it's so obvious in a way, but like didn't so much of our culture just lose that? Like I feel like, I mean, like you and I both went to like a religious high school. I went to church when I was a kid, and like I never really knew that. It seems crazy. It seems crazy. It seems like we've been taught like a lot of laws and don'ts and stuff like that. And I'm not saying there's no place for that or anything like that, but like that is not central, I think, to
Yeah,
like, spiritual practice. And you think of atonement at one mint. Atonement is about it isn't about what like just going to heaven or going to hell, being afraid of going to hell, wanting pleasure, wanting happiness, and doing these things in life because I don't want to feel pain. I want to feel pleasure. I don't want to feel bad. I want to be considered a good person by other people. I don't want to be like those people who are bad people. But no, it's more about, yeah, becoming whole with yourself, with the community, with the world, with everybody. And then, yeah. So lots of thoughts going in different directions. But yeah, I like that. Yeah, I really like that symbol as like the symbol of the soul. And what you just said just makes perfect sense about that that thing that this is the reason he left the palace. He was lost in the woods. This is the reason he went to the cave, slept in the cave. He's been looking for this thing that he lost. This and he needs to before he finds it and transforms, he needs to recognize it and all that stuff. He needs to do the work. He needs to uh, go from being lost to wandering and wondering in the right way to where he's instinctively or whatever sensing the right next steps and everything. So
yeah, yeah. And there you have the bear, the instinctive sensing. Yeah,
yes,
which the
yes,
bear is the one that's like pull the nail out of the wall. That's the problem. Pull the nail out of the wall.
right, right,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, 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 yeah. I love that. I love that holy and holy. Um, because yeah, for me growing up, like when I first learned about religion and holiness and sacredness and all of that, it was always just this kind of ascending thing. Like the holiness was up there somewhere, and I was like turned to it, and
yeah,
and like I can see how that would be useful if, but then what's left behind is then lost. The body, the earth,
mm,
the wholeness of holiness, and
mm.
it becomes kind of compartmentalized, or becomes intellectual, or it
Yeah,
becomes
yeah, totally,
very very soul, or very removed.
yeah,
Um, and and if you're going to be holy and whole, then you need both. You need to be able to have the the higher sacred, but then also the place that responds to it, the place that is enlivened by it, or the thing that praises it. If you want to get really, you know, Christian or you know, kind of back into that, you got to have both in yourself. Otherwise, you don't really. It's just an idea, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get from Vervaeke one reason one of the great things I've got from him is that we're so abstract. We're so Christianity is most has for seems like it's mostly become about belief, which is not faith. Belief
Mm-hmm.
is the opinion about something being true or not. So
Mm-hmm.
like Jesus's resurrection, blah blah blah, whatever. It's all these ideas, like you were saying, intellectual, and and then those become fodder for argument, and then like atheist versus theist, and it's where is the wholeness? Where is the complete? Us trying to be complete, and instead of like, I mean, isn't a lot of the portrayal of Jesus in the Gospels him kind of he's not anti-intellectual at all. He, at a young age, he can go sit with the rabbis by himself and do all kinds of arguments and things based in knowledge. He's not anti-rational or anything, but is in the portrayal of the Pharisees are always kind of trying to use the law to like win arguments and to kind of like be jerks to people and to like, they're like the bad version of a lawyer, right? Like they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to win, or a sophist in thinking of the ancient Greek context with Socrates. He was arguing against the sophists who they
Mm-hmm.
used rationality to try to win. They didn't care about the truth. They weren't using rationality for self-transformation or to try to get to the truth. It didn't matter to them. Like what they were
Mm-hmm.
looking for, they were cynical. So,
Yeah. 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 I mean, I don't
and
know
then
what to add to that, but totally.
sorry, yeah,
No, no, it's
I'm
great. It's
kind of
great.
expanding it maybe too much, but another thing I thought of, what you said, like as a kid going to church and like knowing about the ascent. And I was thinking about how in this story and also in Plato's allegory of the cave in the Republic, the
Mm-hmm.
ascent is not it's a circuitous kind of, I don't know if circuitous is right, but it's not completely straight up, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's got twists and turns. That to me seems much more, yeah, that seems to me more accurate. Like in your life, as you ascend, you're you're going in different directions, and there's different stages and things. It's not just this complete uh linear progress. And I even think like learning more mundane things, even like with exercise, like the ascent is not completely linear. There's plateaus there, and then there's jumps and things like that. So, and there's a little injury, and so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Just the circuitous. I like the connection between Plato's cave and the cave with the that are, you know, that our prince finds himself in, because they do both end with an exit from the cave into some sort of reborn reality, or, you know, I mean,
Right.
it's a little bit of
Yeah.
a stretch, but
Yeah.
it's not that they're not that different. And also you have the in Plato you have the shadows in the cave, the sort of distracting shadows, and in the Turnip Princess you have sort of the fractured reality of, you know, the prince, the old woman slash young woman, and the bear. Like if you do see them as a fractured sense of self, like
Yes.
broken reflections versus shadows on a wall, I mean, they're very close, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
that's good. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's appearance versus reality,
mm,
which the Turnip Princess story keeps showing us there's a difference, right? In
mm-hmm,
his mind. Like he is lost. He yeah, he can't tell what's going on, and it gives us that early hint that these appearances are not malevolent. And yet he can't really accept them. He can't explore them or anything. He's rejecting them. They seem monstrous or scary to him.
Yeah. 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 He keeps saying no to the old woman because she's disgusting, but she's actually the thing he's looking for.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, she's the thing he needs. She's, like you're saying, if you take it as a part of his self, she's the thing that is a part of him, but he's disgusted by it. Disgust is is an emotion where you're rejecting something. You're trying to physically get away from it because it could contaminate you. It's the
Mm.
opposite of what you need. And
Hmm.
it's interesting. He rejects that. That's interesting. Do you think there's two interesting questions. I also wanted to say something about the parallel between the Plato's cave and this. But anyway, uh, do you think there's a lesson about that, about things that we reject? Because I want to be careful, because sometimes we reject things in a from good instincts because they are bad, they are wrong, at least for us.
Hmm.
Uh, but But is there something about, instead of just being uncomfortable with something, we tend to like reject something that is what we need?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because to me, that seems kind of true. I feel like sometimes in life, you are repulsed by something that is like resonating with you in a way that you can't accept or something like that.
Hmm.
Within or
Hmm.
without you. I feel like sometimes happens with people, with other people, sometimes obviously happens with things within ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a complicated thing to talk about because
Mm,
it's like without without a specific example, and
mm,
I'm not asking for one, but like
mm,
without a specific example, it can go so many different ways. And then
mm,
once it's placed
mm,
within the reality of a life in the context of a person's relationship to whatever this thing is,
mm,
then it becomes more of a easily like balanced and weighed and understood and figure out
mm,
like. But I guess one thing that's important is like there's definitely things we should push away in our life. And when we try to push something away and it comes back again
mm,
and again and again, then I think that's kind of the sign that not so much that it's guaranteed that this thing is then good for us, but that we're not understanding it correctly.
yeah,
That there's
that
there's
seems right.
something either in us that's unconscious that's that's holding on to this thing and bringing it back because it needs it for safety or security, or there's something in the thing itself that is genuinely good for us that we, like in this case, it's not an ugly old woman; it's the beautiful maiden that you want to get married to. I get I get a little tweaked about the like. It's so like, oh, the woman is the reward for the gender and the relationships and all of that are complicated, or not complicated, but they're overly simple, but you have to tell a story with the symbols that you have.
Mm,
And so I just want to kind of acknowledge that like I don't we're not saying that like the woman is the reward, but more so it's just a symbolic represent she's a symbolic representation of something he is rejecting.
mm,
And if they're going to end up married in that way, that marriage is a joining of things and it's sort of a new combined wholeness that wasn't there before.
mm,
If you're working in a society where everybody just gets married and has kids, that's the metaphor that's gonna appear in your mind to talk about it.
mm,
But that's not to say that it couldn't be many other things as well
mm,
in a different context.
mm,
But yeah, if it's if it keeps drawing us back, I think I mean, if we keep being drawn to something we're trying to reject, there's two basic stories we can tell. One, reality in life is fucked up and we can never get away from our monsters and we're screwed, or
Yeah.
two, or two, like this thing is happening to support me and my personal growth. And if it's uncomfortable and yucky, like maybe that's a sign that it's important growth because it's not going away and I don't seem to want to do it, but something wants me to do it. And what can I do about that? How can I relate to this whole struggle differently?
Yeah, that sounds like a good way of putting it. Like it's a kind of about your attitude, and the second one seems like a way to kind of start to explore rather than immediately, I don't know, adopt a yeah, negative, cynical kind of attitude about life, which implicitly blames reality and or at least is not taking responsibility for how you feel about things in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that seems good.
Yeah. And I think that, especially given the sort of trauma perspective that I take in the other podcast about this, like there are things that cause us pain and that we want to reject and that we have to take responsibility for that
Yeah.
aren't our fault.
Yeah, that's right.
Things happen
Yeah.
to us. And as much as I want to say life is supportive, I also recognize that it can be painful and chaotic and completely undeserved um, as well. And so trying to hold both of those at the same time is a complicated position for anyone to be in. And I have a lot of respect for people who are doing that. And I'm not saying that it's the prince's fault that there's a nail in the wall. You know, I'm saying the prince is listening to the bear, his bear, and his bear is telling him, you got to get that nail out of the wall. You got to be able to take the thing that is causing this fracturing, this blindness, this shadow play on the walls. If we're going back to Plato, you got to remove it. You got to be able to see clearly, um, and that's something that I think we're all responsible for, regardless of fault or shame or blame or guilt. Like none of that. But if it's there and it's coming back, it wants your attention. Something if it's your younger self, maybe that's a good sort of symbol to put over it. So then you're caring for some element of yourself. I know for me, I often the stuff that I struggle with often feels like it's some part of me that I never. Well, I don't say I want to say I never, but that like some lost feeling from my childhood that wanted attention about something and didn't get it, and like I'm treating that part of myself in the same way of like, just go away, you're bothering me, I'm busy. Whether it's like me wanting to be creative, just this newsletter, this writing that I'm working on, like that was a struggle for me to turn to that. And a lot of it were the voices of like, oh, this is dumb, this is not going to go anywhere, um and that's, to me, that's like that's my version of the Turnip Princess. That's the thing, is like there's this thing that I want to be creative, to express myself, but I'm also disgusted by it. There's some sort of a ew, no, I don't have the time. It's not safe. It's not good. This is wrong. I'm shitty. I don't have anything to share. I'm, you know, full of shit, or I'm very arrogant, or who am I to think I can do this? And underneath that is this longing to be creative and to be seen and to share, and this fear that it won't be received for whatever reason. And I don't even think, because when I was a kid, like my parents were very supportive of me doing whatever creative stuff. I already had some sort of struggle in me when I was born for whatever reason.
Mm.
Um, you know, um, it could be something ancestral down my family line. It could be something around the way I was born. I don't know, past life. I don't know if I believe in past lives, but if they're a thing, that's a vector they could have come from.
Mm.
But yeah, just again, I just want to come back to like your question of like these things that we're disgusted by, that we push away. How do we tell the difference between stuff that's bad and that's good? And
Mm.
I think if it
Mm.
keeps
Mm.
coming back,
Mm.
there's something good in it, even if it's painful and horrible. That there's an opportunity presented by life for us to grow, and growth can be
Yeah.
painful. It can't.
Yeah.
It's not. It shouldn't be super painful, but it's not exactly comfortable either. There's a gray area between the two that I think it kind of points us towards.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very good. That and so identifying those repeated patterns, it seems like, thinking about practices that do that, it seems like reflective practices would help with that. Writing things down. John Vervaeke talks about this, how the developments of psychotechnologies in human history have helped, such as writing, have helped people to become more reflective because, hey, I wrote this a year ago. I was a different person. Then you start reflecting on, oh, I exist over time. I change. I want to grow, or I'm not growing. I wrote this thing 20 years ago and I'm still struggling with this. And look, I'm still blaming somebody about it. And there's like someone, I forgot about that person, but there's this other person that I'm blaming for it. Oh, right. It's like kind of the same thing going on. But
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
but it
man.
seems like, yeah, it's good to have like some practices about that. And that's
Yeah, yeah,
do you
yeah.
Mm. So I
Good.
mentioned, oh, yeah. Thanks. I mentioned journaling. Do you have what reflective practice, do you have reflective practices, or what do you think about those? I'm especially thinking of like conversations like with this podcast or with, I like doing those types of things, but
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that's such a good question. It's such rich territory. I don't know. I have a background both in meditation of various forms and a little bit of shamanic work through a tradition from Africa that I sort of stumbled upon in my 30s. Um, so it's kind of a weird bag of tricks to be pulling from. Um, but yeah, journaling, self-reflective. Um, I've done this book called The Artist's Way a couple of times, and they have a thing morning pages, so you write 3 pages every morning
I
to
have that book.
just
It's
kind of
good.
clear.
Yeah.
And it's not even a journaling thing. It's literally just to kind of like clear your mind onto the page, whatever comes through. Like you're not trying to write, you're not trying to be creative, you're not trying to journal, diary your life. It's just blah. If it's any of those things, it's fine, but it's just whatever comes out. And I've gone back through those, and I've been both surprised to see, oh, here it is, me complaining about a thing that I'm still complaining about 20 years later. Because I first one I did was in my late 20s, and I just did one like a couple of years ago. Um, my second round. But then other ones I read and I'm like, wow, this is really good. And I didn't know I had this in me because I was too in my head at the time to recognize, and seeing it, removed um, by the years. I'm no longer identified as the person who wrote that because it's been 20 years. I'm like, oh, like I have some skill and talent and it needs polishing. And at the time, I really didn't think I did. Um, and that was kind of a catalyst for my newsletter and for getting my ideas out, whatever they are, out into the world. Um, so yeah, writing is definitely one of them. Personally, for me, I've found somatic practices to be really helpful. Um, Coming by, finding ways to come into the body, um, kind of finding the tension in the body, listening to it, working with it.
Mm.
Um, Over time, that kind of merged for me with sort of an internal family systems kind of thing. Not that I've trained much with internal family systems, but the idea of parts work, the different parts of our psyche, the
Mm.
things the desires that come up with us, the blocks, the problems, the anxieties, like all of those kind of speak to us through the medium of the body. And
Mm.
so we can
Mm.
develop that kind of relationship with them where we're not pushing them away, but they're also not the only thing that's going on for us. So it's almost like if you want to take the Plato metaphor, it's like the body becomes the cave, and once we're able to feel the body, then we're able to see the projections a lot more clearly as projections, and
Mm.
then we're able to start wondering like what the fuck's actually going on here.
Mm.
so that the body practices have been really helpful. I first learned those through a Tibetan Buddhist lineage that
Hmm.
became problematic in later years. So I don't want to give too much
Mm-hmm.
too much of a spotlight to that. But the
Mm-hmm.
basic body practices were really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there's some neuroscience stuff. This guy, Dr. Dan Siegel, has come up. He came up with something called interpersonal neurobiology. He has his main book is called Mindsight, and he has a practice called the Wheel of Awareness, where he walks you through different steps. So it's like the body, the emotions, thoughts, maybe desires, and maybe connection. I'd have to double check because I haven't worked through his actual practice of it in a while. But the idea is every experience that comes up that you have, you can see it as like it's on the edge of a wheel, and your awareness is the center of the wheel. It's the sort of axle space in the center of the wheel, and your attention is the spoke between the edge of the wheel and the center of the wheel. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're able to have that experience of like, oh, this thing is happening within me. This is happening to me. This isn't me. I'm both the
Mm-hmm.
thing and the thing witnessing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really is the place where you start to get a little bit of space and a little bit of freedom around stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Although there is the danger, I think, of like falling off into, and therefore I don't have to deal with any of this, the
Yeah.
spiritual bypassing route. It's just I'm just space and nothing touches me. I think we should still be touched by things even if we're space, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
a
spiritual
lot.
bypassing. I've never heard that. That seems like a good way. And then maybe you can even start to take an identity like I'm kind of like a Buddha, like nothing bothers me. Like, why are you bothering me? Go away, like I'm holier than thou, etc. So I'm
Yeah,
never unhappy. What are you talking about? That's a crazy. You must be so unenlightened to even ask me that. My God.
yeah.
How
I'm
low
not
are
I'm not
you?
angry. You're projecting your anger onto me, you know.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I sounded angry to you, but I really was. That's all you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so
yeah,
good. That's so good. Yeah, spiritual bypassing.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, was there anything else I had said about the Turnip Princess, or did we kind of cover the bases?
I can take a look. I think that yeah, the uncovering of the meaning of the turnip I think was the key there.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh
yeah, yeah.
let's see. Turnip because it's buried underground, hidden, unconscious. Um uh, by the way, just to Plato's Republic also they talk about how the
Oh, right, right.
citizens should be convinced that they have been gestated underground, and there's like a political thing there and everything. But yeah,
Wow.
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
I've not read any Plato. I mean, I know the allegory of the cave, but I definitely have not read the Republic.
Mm. Let's see. And the whole episode turns around the prince when he claims the trauma wound, the nail. It's like he finally becomes conscious of the lack. Looks like it's all here. I thought you had. Oh, sorry. That was number three. And the number one, the character who turns out to be who turns from old woman to beautiful maiden can be seen as the body. The prince
Hmm.
pull it. Oh, I think you didn't mention this just now. The prince pulling the nail halfway out of the wall is
Oh, right.
actually, yeah, this is good. Is actually a sign of his wisdom and maturity. Or do you want to go off on that? I don't have to read it, but it's
Yeah, I could probably go off on
okay. Okay.
that. Yeah. Yeah, because I think the first time we read it, I was talking about like, oh, he still doesn't quite trust. He doesn't quite trust. He's listening to the bear, but he's like, "Old woman, you're not going to fool me. Why are you lying to me?"
Yeah.
Um, and and so I was the first time I read it, I was sort of like, no, I don't know about this prince. He seems like he hasn't quite matured yet. And then I, on sort of the second going over it, I realized that the first time he pulls the nail out, he pulls it out all the way out super quick,
Yeah.
and he has it in his hand and he runs off. So there's this
Right.
there's this urgency and there's this kind of young immature kind of callowness to the whole thing, and he immediately runs into a monster, which I do think we talked about. But
Yeah.
what I didn't realize is the second time he's being very deliberate. He gets the nail off the ground, puts it in the wall, you know, sees where they are, and then takes it halfway out. And whenever you're dealing with trauma or suppressed emotions or anything, you really want to go about it slow. Like you don't want to rush things, because the there's a lot of energy in the emotions that are trapped inside, and there's also a lot of energy suppressing them. So a lot of us are walking around with this like kind of locked in energetic stronghold thing inside of us, where
Yeah.
like the initial expression is wanting to be expressed, and the shame or the anger or the freeze response or whatever it is
Mm.
that's responding to that initial expression is also like active at the same time. And so
Yeah.
if you're like, I'm just gonna let this go, oftentimes it will be very explosive. You gotta titrate is the word. So it's like a little bit at a time, little bit at a time. I think it's a chemistry term or something.
Mm.
It's about like if you have a very reactive mix that you're doing, you want to just do like one or two drops
Mm.
at a time,
Makes sense.
so that it has a time to actually, the thing that the drops are going into, so that the mind that is contacting the suppressed emotion is able to just take in a little bit, and
Mm.
then understand, okay, this isn't dangerous, okay, and that kind of communication happens between the two parts, and then it's a little safer. But if you try and
Yeah.
go at it all at once, then it's not. So we see the prince doing the same thing with the nail. He pulls it halfway out, he looks, he sees, oh, this is half old woman. So the part of him that thinks it's an old woman is able to be like, yes, I'm
Mm.
validated. And then the part of him that realizes, oh no, this is actually the missing part of my soul, is like, oh yes, oh, I see, I'm able to see the distinction, I'm able to see the illusion I was operating under. um
Yeah.
and then he's able to take the nail all the way out, and they destroy the nail together. So it's like he no longer needs that. And the first time, even though he ran off with it, he still kind of needed it. Like it still existed in the story, it was still necessary for the story to move forward. And once he's able to have that moment of seeing the false reality of the split and the true reality of the marriage, the joining that's possible, he doesn't need the nail anymore, because the two opposites are able to relate to each other in like a really a healthier way than when he was trying to escape one and go take the other one, you know, in a rush.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. And that seems, yeah, rather than he's suspicious, or I was thinking you could say he's like, he just, yeah, he has his head on his shoulders and he's kind of watching to see what's happening. He's not sort of blindly rushing in, or he's not blindly, okay, I have the solution now, let's just do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maturity seems the right way to label that, immaturity versus maturity, rather than like bad and good or something like that. That seems, yeah, when you're mature, you have your eyes more open and you're watching to see how things are going as you're doing things. And yeah, you're not overly eager and all that. Yeah, that seems really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, because I had completely forgotten about that part of it.
Mm.
But yeah,
Do you still have energy to do the other story?
I mean, I do, but I don't know if we want to put it on the same recording.
Yeah, we can yeah, this has gone, yeah, we were thinking this might go 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah, do you want to we'll stop this one and do the next one on the Turnip by Brothers Grimm.
Yeah, let's do it that way. And then people don't have to try and digest all of it at once.
Yeah, sounds good.
So yeah.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.